Good morning and welcome to Earth and Sky. If you haven't already, please hit the like button down below if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button to make sure you get our notifications as well. If you are on Facebook, go ahead and go on over to YouTube and search us out there, Earth and Sky Center on YouTube, and hit the subscribe button so you can make sure to get all of our video content. I don't know if you're seeing behind me, this wheel is really getting filled out now. It's so exciting to see all of the holidays for the whole year have come together now. So next year we have some other exciting plans that we will be adding to the wheel here in the center part here. So you'll have to stay tuned to hear more about that. But for now, since we are still near Halloween, near Samhain, I just wanted to get in a little bit deeper about the afterlife and what happens to us. I know people are talking a lot this time of year about ghosts and spirits that wander the earth, and sometimes that makes people think, sometimes that makes people a little bit nervous as well. Some people who don't quite know what happens to us when we cross over wonder if they have a lot of questions. It seems like people who don't have a confidence in the afterlife are the ones that have the most questions about what happens and why there are ghosts and why things, happen the way they do. Why do things move around? If you have really active ghosts in your home, why do things move? Why do you hear about haunted places where things will fall off tables, or you'll see handprints in windows, or you might see a face silhouette in a window, or you might see orbs. Maybe you're one of those people who takes pictures and you get orbs behind you a lot, and it's not just the particles of dust, but you can tell by the color and the shape and things like that it's actual orbs. Maybe your grandmother's visiting you in your pictures. So I wanted to delve into all of that. And the next couple of topics we have coming up with Earth and Sky might be things that cause you to want us to go deeper into certain subjects. So if that happens, please comment down below on our Earth and Sky page on the video that you're watching and let us know what you would like to talk deeper about too. We have some thought-provoking things coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next week we will be broadcasting from Niagara Falls in Canada, so we will be having a lot of fun with that as well. But just to go ahead and get into the topic tonight. So what do you believe happens when we die? What do you expect to see on the other side? Go ahead and comment down below on this video. Let us know what your thoughts are. And then I also want to get in a little bit into some of the other things that some common questions people have when they come to see me, when they want to hear from their loved ones, or they come in for a psychic reading, either one. I'll go over some of those commonly asked questions. So I believe when we cross over, and I've had several near-death experiences too through that span of time where I was really ill, and usually when I would have a near-death experience, I would see that bright white light, that brilliant light. I would feel alleviated. All of the pain from my body would leave. I would feel just exhilarated with joy. And it was just such a welcome release considering what I was going through. It was such a welcome release. And the main thing, every single time that I would cross over, I would feel overwhelming love. Just this overwhelming sensation of absolute unconditional full love at the light of everything, the most that you can imagine being in love, and then multiply that by 10,000. It's just this incredible source of love, this incredible feeling of welcoming. And I do believe that's what people feel when they go to the other side. I also think that when people first cross over, because we all have our different belief systems, and I am not one to tell people what will happen to them. I'm not one to tell people what you should believe. I'm not one to say I'm right and somebody else is wrong, because who am I to say that? And we all have different beliefs, and I do believe that when we first cross over, for pretty much everybody, the first things you will see will be the things that you expect to see. So if you are somebody who has a strong Christian background and you expect to see, say, Jesus, or you expect to see pearly gates, you're going to see that image. You're going to see what you expect to see, because that's what's going to greet you when you first transition to cross onto the other side. Quite often, and I've been with people who are dying, because that's one of the things that I feel like I have a gift to do, is to be with people during those crossing over times. And quite often, what I typically see is they will reach out to people that they know. They'll feel like in the few days before they're dying, if this is a long-term thing, they'll reach out to people that they know. They'll start to see images of either their children or their loved ones that have passed on, whether they're friends or family or even animals they'll see as well. And oftentimes patients, especially, any patients, will often see angels that will come in too. And they'll see these, whether it's magnificent beings or whether they just see a glowing light. Quite often it's common to see glowing white light or glowing gold light at the foot of their bed. Or you'll see them staring off into the corner talking to somebody that you don't see, and they are having a very detailed conversation. And that's because that thread is very thin when you're getting ready to cross over, because just like all things in life, it's not an instant you're here and then you're gone. There's a continuing thread. So if you're really healthy and full of vigor, then you're really here fully in your body. As you start to slip out to go to that next dimension, you do slowly slip out when it's a long-term illness. And so they'll start to see their loved ones and have conversations with them, start to feel welcome. Often if you read about people that are dying, you might see where they start to hold their hands up and they feel like they are reaching up to somebody, and they are. They're reaching to those spirits that are reaching down to them. Often I'll see the angels where they'll have the arms outstretched, or their loved ones will have a hand outstretched and welcome them to cross to the other side. I know one of the crossing overs that I did that was probably one of the more impressionable ones to me was where the spirit had been trapped in a barn for a long time, and when I helped him cross over, he wanted to hold my hand. It was the first time I had that experience. Usually I will open that portal for them and help show them how to walk through. I'll see their angels walk them through, but he really wanted to hold my hand, so I held his hand and we walked up and I released him into the portal. Quite often that seems to be a thread that is common for many people. They want, I think it's a comforting gesture to feel like they're holding your hand. And if you notice, even in the physical world, as people are dying, quite often we are drawn to hold that person's hand. It's a way that we can feel close to them. We can feel that connection with their spirit and with their body by holding their hand. It might not be somebody you would normally hold their hand, but as they start slipping and they're getting closer to that veil, it's quite common to want to have that desire to just hold their hand. Same thing happens on the other side. They reach out and they hold their hand as they cross across. Now, often those people, if they've had a little bit of time to prepare, so it makes it a little easier as they slip through to the other side because they've had time to think about it, to process it. So many people in this life don't take the time to think through and process death until we're faced with it. And if it's our own death, then often we'll take quite a bit of time to think about and process it. If it's somebody that's very, very close to us that's dying, we might take a little bit of time to think about and process it, but often there's this factor of fear or unknown or not wanting to think too much about it. So I see so many people that don't prepare until they get to that time. And I do believe it really is helpful for everybody to think about it, to prepare for it, so that when that time comes for everybody. When that time comes, it'll make it a little bit easier because you'll feel solidified in what you're going to see. You'll feel that confidence in the other side. If you meditate, you can actually meditate and start to see that other side. You can kind of cross over, astral travel, if you will, to part of that where you can see the other side while you're still here physically, and be able to just become comfortable with being out of your body and being in with your body, and it makes that transition of death so much easier. Now, we also have those people that are killed very suddenly, very unexpectedly. Sometimes it's a heart attack, sometimes it's a car accident, sometimes they're murdered. And the ones that I see where they tend to linger the most around here quite often is somebody that's murdered, or there's something that's left unsaid. Maybe it was a heart attack and they just had an argument with a loved one, or they had something that's been long standing unsaid. Maybe they've been not associated with somebody that's very close to them for several years, and they're wishing that they had things that were unsaid, and they died so quickly they weren't able to resolve that. people like that are the ones that more often I see where they do get stuck here for a period of time. And so it's not everybody, it's nothing to fear. I just want to really emphasize with any of the things that I have to say today, none of this is anything to fear. It's all part of that process. We all go through this process, and there is a beautiful end where we do all get acclimated in that light of love at some point at the end. This is partly to help make that process go a little smoother for you, possibly, or to help you release some of your loved ones that are around you. So if it's somebody that, we'll say somebody that's been murdered, they might be wanting to get somebody to understand who it was that killed them. They might be trying to get closure with a situation that happened. Same thing if there's someone that it died suddenly of a heart attack and they feel like they just have so many things unsaid, they have unfinished business. There are various cultures that believe you should really live your life in a way that you always finish, you always close what you're doing so you don't have unfinished business when you go on the other side. Now, I think there's a lot of leeway with that. I don't think that everybody, just because you have unfinished business, is going to be hanging around this earth as a soul. But quite often it does seem to happen when it's somebody that dies very suddenly and very unexpectedly. And in those cases, it's really helpful to have the people that are close to that person to just be able and be willing and open to talking to that spirit, letting them know that it's okay to cross over. If it's somebody where there's a case, the police are working on trying to investigate the case, assure them that you will be doing everything that you can to track down, to get closure with that. But in the meantime, that it's okay that they cross over. Your loved ones and all the spirits are still around you, and they can still hear you too. Even if this was a peaceful passing, they can still hear you. So sometimes I'll also see people where their loved ones are hanging around because there's so much grief and so much sadness, and they really want their loved ones to get closure, to get peace. And so they just want to allow their loved ones to feel their presence until they can feel that closure a little bit, to feel that healing process start. And so it's also very helpful if you have a loved one that passed, that you just let them know that it's okay, because there is a period of grief for all humans. It's part of what we're here on this planet to experience. We're here to experience a wide range of emotions, a wide range of experiences, and grief is part of that process. And being willing to be selfless enough to release those spirits around you, to let them know that you love them, that you know that you will see them again, and that it's time for them to move on to their next part of their journey, will actually help that spirit, that energy to release, to be able to go on to the other side so they can complete their journey. And so some of those are just some of the things to help release those spirits. Now, once we get on the other side, there's a period of learning too. So it's first about just getting closure here, first seeing what you expect to see, getting some closure here, and then it's about a life review. And that life review, there is no time on the other side. Time is a construct that we as humans make, time and space. We make those so we can understand this 3D world around us. But on the other side, there's no time. So it's hard to say how long a life review will last for somebody on the other side. That's a common question I get. And but there is a period where they go through and they see all of the aspects of their life coming through. They see the choices that they made, the pivotal decisions that they made, the relationships that they had, the contributions that they made to this planet, and they see all of that, and they figure out where they contributed, where they maybe took away, and what their purpose was, because we're all here for different purposes too. Whether you are a person who's struggling with homelessness, or whether you are a person who's a huge philanthropist. We have all got our lessons, and we all choose certain things that we're here to do, whether we're teaching others or we're primarily learning from others. I think we all do both of those in a variety of aspects. And it's about learning those lessons. So we assimilate, we learn those lessons, we figure out what it is we did Did we meet our karmic goals? Do we have karmic debt that we're incurring that we'll be taking into our next life? And so it's learning about all of those and then processing that and figuring out what you want to do with your next life then, and figuring out what your plan is, how you can assimilate what you did and learned in this life, and how you can take that up to the next level in the next life. And then it might be quite a long period of time in Earth years before you come back, because this 3D realm is so different from the other side where there is no time and space. Some people will take on jobs on the other side too. I had a client recently where I believe it was a grandmother, was working with helping the souls come into the babies as they're being born here. So it was an interesting job. I hadn't seen somebody do that before. It makes sense that people do that on the other side. But she was preparing the babies and getting their life lessons together and getting them ready as they chose the family that they were going to be born into here. What a great job to have on the other side. That would be fascinating. She had such a wonderful energy too. But there are so many other things, so many other jobs too. Often people on the other side will come and be guardians and angels and protectors. And I use the term angel loosely with that, but guardians and protectors of people that are here too, people that they love. Sometimes they become protectors of people that they don't even know, depending on what their life lessons were, what their process is. So many different jobs, so many different things that get built together as we go on to the other side, and then eventually coming back again and repeating it in a new form of life. One of the other frequently, let me try to remember. There was something else I was going to say about that too. I'm not sure. So one of the other frequently asked questions that I get is Earth hell? Is this planet hell? Or is there a devil? And a lot of times people will fear the other side because they fear, am I possibly going to hell? Did I do enough good? Did I do the right things? Is there a devil that's going to punish me? And I don't believe in any of that. I really don't. I really think that those were all constructs made up by certain religions to cause fear, to cause people to follow a certain pattern of beliefs. And I think that it's been very effective for a lot of people, because if you're told if you don't believe this certain way, then this horrid thing for eternity is going to happen to you, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not anything that I've seen with what I've tapped into with spirits or traveling to the other side, any of that. I haven't seen any of that. I just don't believe in it. So then one of the questions that I get asked next frequently is, and then how can there be so much evil in the world? Somebody has to do it. It has to be a devil or demons or some evil influence causes this pain and suffering in the world, causes people to do things like mass shootings or mass casualties in various forms. And it's people that do that. It's not a demon. It's not a devil. It's a lack of love is at the core of that. And I think that it's a lack of love in the person's life who causes it. It's a lack of making decisions from a loving standpoint. I think the core of all that is suffering in this world is a lack of love. Sometimes that's self-love. Sometimes that's showing the opposite of love to others, which is hatred. Often that's fear that causes that. Just like with bullies, if you look at bullies in a school, quite often they're not the meanest, toughest kids. They're actually the cowards that are really afraid. And if you stand up to them, then you'll find out that they are actually just really afraid and that they'll tend to back off. I think that same thing happens with a lot of the evil that happens in the world. It comes from either a feeling of being a coward or being afraid or succumbing to fear or just feeling disconnected. How they've talked a lot about how the way ISIS is connecting people and the way ISIS is starting to grab kids in the U.S. to get active with them or to engage online with them. I wouldn't even say active per se, but to engage online and feel like they're part of their family, is they're targeting kids that feel more alone. They feel isolated. They don't feel accepted in their families. They feel like they have a lack of love. And so this group is coming in and saying, hey, we are a family. We will protect you. We will teach you. We will guide you. Come join us. And then it's a negative influence, but they're seeking love, they're seeking approval, they're seeking connection. And isn't that what everybody is seeking, is connection, approval, love, lack of judgment? And so it's important to not allow things that have such negative influences to take over our children and the people around us, the adults around us, and even ourselves, by simply giving love. And so the way to combat evil in this world is simply by loving others. So when you smile at somebody, that's a stranger, that smile can travel all the way around the world. You might brighten somebody's day that's around you, and then they might have a pleasant conversation with somebody on the phone that brightens their day, that brightens another day, that, it spreads. Love can spread like wildfire, and the only way to really combat the negative in this world is through love. Now, part of being on this planet is experiencing both. It's experiencing good things and bad things. It's through experiencing bad things that we can gain an appreciation for the good things. If everything was always good and perfect all the time, we would have a different standard of where our level of good is, and we would seek even more good to get those peaks in our emotions. And so when you're going through struggling times, when you're going through something that's really trying and feels like it's a really negative thing in your life, or you've had somebody that's just said some really horrible things to you, then if you just understand that's just part of the process of being here. You breathe, you let it go, you don't let it be a reflection of you, you don't take it in as influencing how you think about yourself, you don't let it influence how you're going to react to other people, and instead you breathe, you let it go, and you draw in that loving light. That's going to really help you so that you can continue to be a light in this world, so you can continue to spread that love in this world. Now back to spirits that are on this planet. So there are a lot of spirits that sometimes might just be a thread of who they are too. So sometimes it's not that their whole soul, most of the time it's not their whole soul that's here. It's just a thread of that soul. So if somebody is here and they're attached because their loved ones are not wanting to let them go, they're really holding on to that person's spirit as much as they can because they're just grieving, they just don't want to let them go, then quite often a lot of their soul will already be transferring to the other side and starting to go through the life review, but there's a piece of it that is still here. And so it's learning to, you don't need them as much, as you're able to start to let them go more, then the rest of their soul can start to transfer over to the other side. And sometimes we have certain ghosts that are just happy being here. They're not really associated with a specific person. It wasn't necessarily a trauma. They're just really happy being here. They're happy with where they're at. I know one example of this is at the Bruce Mansion, which is in Brown City. They have some ghosts that are just very happy to be there. They have a young girl named Emily that is just an absolute joy to be there, and she really has a beautiful energy that goes through the house. They have a few other ghosts that are standard in the house, but it also acts as a way station for a lot of ghosts that tend to come in and out. It's almost like, it feels like a train station, if you will, or stagecoach maybe stop, that where there's a lot of activity that just kind of goes and comes. There's a lot of activity on the other side. We share this space with so many other planes of energy, so many spirits that walk around us that some of us see and many of us don't see. Sometimes you'll feel their energy too. Sometimes you might, especially if you go to a place that's very haunted, like the Bruce Mansion. I know you can find them on Facebook, Haunted Bruce Mansion Paranormal, I believe is the Facebook page for them. But if you're wanting to experience something like that, then you can go to a place where they're rich in ghosts, and then just go and sit in one of the rooms for a half hour and allow yourself to be quiet and see what you feel. The last time I was there, I know it was right before Halloween, so there were a lot of spirits passing through. It was the first time some of the ghost investigators there had felt spirits go right through them. So that was, I know one of them had actually knocked him down, so it was a little unnerving because he literally fell as the spirit just passed straight through him. So if you're wanting to feel things like that, to really get more of an understanding of the other side, then you might want to go to a place like that, or you might want to go to Gettysburg, where they have a lot of ghosts, and Gettysburg has its own feel too. There's a very friendly atmosphere with most of the ghosts there, which you wouldn't necessarily expect with it being a Civil War town. Sometimes people think of war and, you know, all of the tragedy that comes with that, but there's a very friendly feeling with the ghosts that are there. Another friend of mine has a house that has very helpful ghosts in it, and they're very inspiring if people are wanting to work on projects. I know I held an office in one of her rooms for a while, and it was so inspiring. It was great. If I have something I'm needing to work on, sometimes I'll go and use her attic, because they will fill you with some ideas, and they'll make things fall into place. It's very subtle when you're working with ghosts too, because they're not going to say out loud, hey, I think I have an idea, let me help you with that. It's more about going within and listening to what comes up in your mind. You might hear within your mind certain things that will really inspire you, or you might feel a breeze. Sometimes it's very subtle if you're just starting to feel things like this. You might feel like there's a breeze that just kind of pushes against you, and you can look around and there's no fan in the room. There's nothing that would cause the breeze. When we are at the Bruce Manor, oftentimes there will be temperature drops, sometimes up to 20 degrees in a spot where the spirits are. In the attic there's an older woman that just seems very feeble a little. She has a weaker energy, but when you're in her space, when you're near her, you can put your hand out and you'll feel an immediate temperature shift where she is, and you can put your hand back here and you'll notice that there's no shift there. And again, checking for fans, checking for drafts, things like that. But you'll notice some very distinct things like that. Sometimes you might feel a tickle, or you might feel like somebody's tapping on you, things like that. Or on occasion, if the ghosts are very active and they're exiting to the other side, as happens often near Halloween, then you might feel them go straight through you. And so it's just a lot of different ways that you can experience the other side. It's great to work on experiencing things like that so you can prepare yourself too to release fear. That's the biggest thing, is releasing fear about death, because death is not the end. Death is only the beginning. It's the beginning of the next cycle. Yes, you're saying goodbye to the people that you know here, but we also tend to travel in soul groups too as we reincarnate. That's why sometimes when you meet people, you just feel like you've known them forever. You see them and you just feel like you've already known them. You're not sure how, or you'll recognize people and you're not recognizing that person's body, but you're recognizing that soul because you were very close in another life. And so it'll just click when you recognize them in this life. Children are so open to these things too. If you have any children, or if you watch children, it's also very interesting if you go to anywhere that has a lot of ghosts, because the children will often see them, and you can verify it by the children seeing the same things. I remember when we went to Gettysburg, there was a yard behind a house that used to be like a playground, and so they told us that often if there were children in the group, the children, even though it was just a yard, now it didn't look like a playground at this point on the earth plane, the children would talk about seeing the kids in the play yard, and they would point to the same places typically. And it's just very interesting. So watch what the children are saying around you, and don't get scared about it too. Don't allow yourself to get afraid just because they're seeing something that you're not seeing. Children just came from the other side. So again, just like people who are near death and heading to the other side where the veil is thin, children just came through, so they're much more open to it too. They can see it. They just came from there. And so it's just another way that you can learn from them, be open-minded with them, encourage them with it even. Ask them questions about it. If they're talking about a loved one that you know that's passed on, then maybe you can ask questions and get some verification that your loved one is still around you too. Often it's just remnants of that person that will be around you, so they might have crossed over, but there are pieces of them here. We are not so 3D. It's, if you look into quantum physics, once we cross onto the other side, we can spread out into many, many particles. We can be in multiple places at the same time. So just some thoughts to think about as far as the other side, as far as not being afraid of it, trusting the process, thinking about what it is that you believe in on the other side, and how can you be a light in this world? How can you help release others if you have others that are close to you. And know that death is not the end. If somebody you really love dearly has died and passed on, you will see them again. You'll see them probably on the other side first, and then you'll probably be coming back in a soul group together, experiencing more of this life together. You might come back in a totally different set of relationship as far as type of relationship with that person, but you will see them again. Death is not the end. Please let us know if you have any questions down below, any thoughts about this topic. We love to hear your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing you next week. If you are interested more as well in the Bruce Manor, they do actually have weekends open where they do allow people to do tours through the manor. Sometimes I will guide people through the manor, and often it's other people that will be there as well. It's a fantastic group of people. They have a lot of the fun equipment too. If you want to use some of that fun equipment, they have the spirit nets and the ghost boxes where you can hear words that come through. They have the EMF readings too. We got a very, very active reading while we were there last week, and we were in the basement. My sister Deanna and I were in the basement talking to the ghost named Bob, who is sometimes quite a bit cranky, and he was in a very pleasant mood while we were talking with him. We did a little bit of singing with him, which he seemed to like, and he was answering all of our questions. As we would ask questions, we would hear him answer, and then he would light up that EMF reading each time after the question. So it's very fun to be able to have that equipment to verify it as well. They also have some cameras set up so they can have the dark cameras, so even if it's dark in the basement, they can see the ghosts come through. I know I took a photo, and there's a room where people will often feel as though they're being pulled back into this room. And the camera, the picture that I took, has this big shadow of a huge hand that's right next to this person that's feeling like they're being pulled back into the room. So they have a lot of very active things. The last week, as people were leaving on Emily's room, they took a photo, and Emily's hand and face were right in the window too. So it's very interesting. You never know what you will get. It might be a slow night. It might be an active night. It really all depends on the ghost. You can't force them. And when you're talking to ghosts, you do want to be respectful. Just like you're being respectful with people, you want to be respectful to them on the other side. So don't antagonize them. Instead, talk to them. Just have a conversation, just like you would with other people. And it's always interesting to see what will come out. So if you want more information on that, go to their Facebook page. If you want information on Crimson Moon Paranormal Group, which I just became a member of recently, then go ahead and go to their page, Crimson Moon Paranormal Fan and Request page, and you'll be able to see a lot of the findings that they get at the Bruce Manor there. So a lot of interesting and exciting things to come over the next year with that. And I think that is actually all I'm going to say for this week. I think we might have run over a little bit on time. Please like that Facebook page down below. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And I really appreciate all of you. I appreciate all your feedback. Thanks. Have a great week.